Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first of several theory videos that are going to get uploaded. I hope everyone's coronavirus break is treating you well. I am bored at home so far, but getting some stuff done and making my way through the Marvel series of movies, which is exciting because 18 of them are on Disney Plus. So if you're looking for something to do and you've got all your homework done, I recommend Marvel movies. Anyway, okay, so we are going to discuss Theory 1.5 in this first video for anybody who wasn't there in class at the beginning of this week, or if you were in class and you need a refresher and things are just kind of confusing. I recommend, if this video is still not cutting it for you and you're still confused, go to musictheory.net. Link will be in the description. Anyway, musictheory.net is a good resource, and so you can do lessons there, or you can do they'll give you like practice examples if you're trying to do note recognition, or if you're trying to do interval recognition for those of you who are on higher levels of theory or anything like that, so you can actually get some practice, not just have a lesson taught to you. Okay, so on to 1.5. So in our earlier units of theory, we talked about treble clef letter names, bass clef letter names. We were working on solfege, of course, which we are rock stars at solfege at this point. And now we're introducing a new concept in 1-5. But let's review first treble clef letter names and bass clef letter names. So in the treble clef, which is also known as the G clef, second line is going to be G. That's where the treble clef swirly aroundy goes, right? So for the letter names, remember, for the lines, we use the sentence, every good boy deserves fudge, or you can use any other sentence that you want, but that's the one that I prefer. And remember that we're counting from the bottom. So E, every, G, line 2, good boy deserves fudge. So again, we're going for 5 lines there. The spaces, of course, are just face, F-A-C-E. So those are in the spaces. So we've got F-A-C-E in the spaces. Again, from bottom to top. So from the very bottom, remember, it's E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F on our music stuff. Bass clef, which we are not as familiar with either, same idea. Bass clef is the F clef. It used to be a cursive letter F, right? And so on the 4th line, that's where the dot is of the bass clef. And then the 2 dots, it kind of looks like a little like sideways emoji. I call those the eyes. That goes around line 4. That line 4 is our F. So for the line phrase, we use great burritos don't fall apart. So F is fall, right? Great burritos don't fall apart. Spaces for bass clef would be all cows eat grass. Moo, or at least the average ones eat grass, right? So from the bottom to the top, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and A. Make sure you are totally comfortable and solid on those letter names, because everything else is going to become difficult if you're not totally solid with that. So practice memorizing it. If you need to write it down, if you need to put it on your 1-5 sheet, if you haven't already, do that. If you need to make flashcards, remind yourself of that. And again, musictheory.net, you can actually practice that as well. Practice letter names on their website. So 1-5, the content of this is all about intervals, which is the space between 2 notes. So we have talked about half steps in class, singing half steps and singing whole steps. We do our haunted half step exercise. Ooh, ooh. So we've been doing that and training our ear, but now we need to train our eye as well and make sure that we have this understanding of the relationship between solfege, whole steps and half steps, and letter names. So for our major scale in solfege, we know do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, easy peasy. But in between 2 notes that are next to each other, which would be a step, so like do to re or re to mi to fa, those are all steps because they are touching, they're next to each other. Those are either going to be whole steps or half steps. So from do to re is a whole step. Re to mi is a whole step. Do, re, whole step. Re, mi, whole step. From mi to fa, that's one of our half steps. Mi, fa, half step. Should sound like haunted half steps. Ooh. Then fa, so, whole step. So fa to so is a whole step. So to la, whole step. La to ti, whole step. Ti to do, half step. So from bottom to top, again, do to re, whole. Re to mi, whole step. Mi to fa is half. Fa to so is whole step. So to la is whole step. Ti to do is a half step. So the pattern and order would be whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Now, I can do exactly the same thing with letter names, starting on the letter name C. So if I start on letter name C, C to D is a whole step. D to E, also a whole step. E to F is a half step. F to G, whole step. G to A, whole step. A to B, whole step. And then B to C is also a half step. So exactly the same concept between our letter names and our solfege. All of those intervals, those steps, are either going to be whole steps or half steps. Now, what I recommend is memorizing the 4 half steps, because if you can memorize the 4 half steps, everything else as a whole step, easy to remember, because if it's not one of those 4 pairs of half steps, then it's a whole step. So I do a dumb song. We came up with it in class of last year just to help people remember which ones were the half steps and such. So I just literally go mi to fa, ti to do, e to f, b to c, and it's stupid. But hey, if you can get it stuck in your head, you're never going to forget the half steps. So those are the 4. Again, mi to fa, ti to do, e to f, b to c. Now, if we look at the actual worksheet on 1-5, we should be able to put this now all down on paper. So starting on line 1, we've got a treble clef. We've got what looks like a bunch of steps in a row, right? We've got a line, space, note, line, space, line, space, line, space. Now, if you remember from 1-3, when we were figuring out notes that are off the staff, or notes with ledger lines, we just use our alphabetical order or our solfege order down or up. So if I'm trying to figure out the name of that first note on line 1, my bottom line in treble clef is E for every, right? And then I have to count the spaces down. So I start on E for every, and then I have to go down a space and down a line. So I just went down 2. And so if I'm using my my alphabetical order, E would go down to D, then would go down to C. So that first note on line 1 is a C. So the second note, normally I would not tell you, but since this is a video, I'll just tell you. But second note, we go up 1, so it's D. And then the next note, the third note, that would be our E, and on and on and on. In this example as well, on line 1, for that very first note, you're going to label it C, capitalized for the letter name, but also I want you to label it as do, lowercase, because in solfege, we're going to write all of our solfege lowercase. So once you get that all filled out, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, each of those notes we can then label as a half step, or each of those pairs, as a half step or a whole step. Now, you should see on yours that you have these kind of curvy lines, and then you have like V shapes. I call the curvy lines, I just call them arcs. I call the V shapes carets, like as in exponents in math, using the caret symbol. So the arcs are between C to D and D to E, and then F to G, G to A, and A to B. So that would represent whole steps. The carets, the V shape, that should be in between your E to F and your B to C on that first line. So that would represent half steps. So now we can use that symbol, or we can use W's and H's, W for whole step, H for half step, either one, to label the distance between those 2 notes, or the intervals. But we need to be able to do that. So at the end of that line, it'll place lowercase d for do on your staff to show you where it is. You've got an example that'll show you as well. It'll tell you whatever the solfege is and that step. You have to figure out the solfege for the rest of the line, and if it's a whole step or half step based on what we just went over. If you have any questions, you should be good to go, but feel free to shoot me a message on Remind, or you can shoot me an email, or even on Google Classroom. You can comment on this video on Google Classroom as well, and let me know what you need. And hopefully this helps you out for Theory 1-5.